I'm going to show you the way I've extended the fence length on the DeWalt job site saw. That's the DWE 7480, but I think this should apply to all DeWalt job site saws. Basically, the problem with these saws is they have a very, very short fence. And when you look at a professional cabinet saw, the fence is actually quite long. It can be up to almost 4 feet sometimes. And that is actually a big advantage in creating straighter cuts. And what a long fence does is give your wood a chance to register very well square against the fence when it's gliding into the cut. So I'm going to look at the way that I've extended my fence, and I don't think I've seen anyone else do a video on this, so I think it could be useful to most people. Okay, so basically what this extension piece is a piece of extruded aluminum called 8020. I forget the exact name of the profile, but I'll put it up in the description. And effectively what is happening here is this extruded piece of aluminum basically bolts on to the existing DeWalt fence. Now this is a very short fence, and what can happen is you really just don't get a great registration of your workpiece when you're beginning to slide it through the saw. I mean, it's just a very short sort of runway up to the blade, and you need to, ideally, you should have a long runway with a long straight edge, really guiding that wood and making it as straight as possible leading up to your cut. So what the extended fence does is help create that straightness before you get into the actual cut. Okay, so the attachment itself couldn't be any simpler. Basically, there's 2 holes drilled into the existing DeWalt aluminum extrusion fence. And then what we have on the piece of 8020 extruded aluminum are T-tracks. And all we do is run T-track bolts through the holes, the 1/4-20 holes that we've created. And that's it. It just needs those 2 mounting points like that, and we can slide our extrusion on very easily. And this is what it looks like from the back. So basically there's just 2 1/4-20 bolts at the right size, and when you tighten them, it locks the fence down. Okay, so now what are the advantages of having an extended fence? So first of all, the installation couldn't be easier, assuming that you can drill 2 holes in your existing DeWalt aluminum extrusion, and you gain all the advantages of just having the same rack and pinion system and the easy positioning. And then you've got another level of positioning. You can create a short infeed, or you can create a long infeed with your extrusion just simply by sliding it along the T-tracks. And this gives you obviously the biggest advantage is it creates that long fence that allows you to create a nice, stable, straight line. So when you're moving into the cut, your wood is already very straight, and it will continue on in straightness throughout the cut. My cuts have improved dramatically since increasing the length of the fence. That was the #1 greatest thing that I could have done in increasing simply just the straightness of a cut. Okay, now let's go over some of the quirks of this system. First, it's not a quirk, it's very straight. This has maintained a great straightness throughout its life. Aluminum is wonderful because it's actually kind of elastic. Even if you bend it a little bit, it's not going to come out of shape. Okay, so it's straight. Now, when you're running it sort of off the original DeWalt fence, which is quite stiff, you can get a little bit of deflection on the end, but I mean, you could really solve that by just not putting 50,000 pounds of pressure against it. You really just use it as a nice gentle guide, guiding your wood in, and that's really the main function that it serves. One little quirk with this material that I found is if you tighten the bolts too much in the back, it can actually bring it off of true ever so slightly, like a 64th of an inch. So what I do is I just hand tighten the bolts, and the pressure of the wood coming through and the pressure of this all locked down it'll hold it to it very straight anyway. So you don't need to go nuts locking this thing down. And you really only need 2 mounting points too. I mean, why fuss with something that's already very simple? What else is a gotcha is when you're doing a 45-degree cut. Now what you see is these grooves here, and if you have a 45-degree edge on your piece, and say if you're cutting like 2 bevels or something like that, your 45 can kind of go into that groove. Now it'd obviously be better if this was just a straight face, but I didn't get that exact type of extrusion. Now what you can do to give your 45 bevel a little bit of a face to rest on and not allow it to go into those grooves and kind of go all wonky is just simply more T-track stuff. You can slide on another, just a straight up piece of board and create a nice flat face. You could do this over the whole, you could skin the whole thing in wood anyway if you want to. Or you can mount stuff from the top. You can, there's a lot of advantages with simply having T-tracks everywhere. Okay, so that's it really. It's very simple. It's the simplest add-on to the DeWalt fence that I've used. Once I realized that I was getting kind of curved, just erratic cuts just by using this tiny little fence, and I kept looking at bigger saws, and I'm like, what do they have that I don't have? And it really, one of the main things is having a big fence to reference off of. So once I extended my fence, it helped me out dramatically with getting straighter cuts, and so the name of the game is just a nice straight cut through the table saw. I don't know what the exact extrusion number is. The 80/20 has all numbers for their extrusions, and they're based off of the dimensions. But I'll look it up and I'll put it in the link. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful in some way. And if you own a DeWalt saw, maybe it's something you want to consider. Thank you.